Hey everybody, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute, and you're listening to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, where we discuss the importance of purpose in our everyday lives. Discovering and living out your purpose keeps you focused on God's purpose. That is sharing the good news of salvation with others. This podcast is for people like me, still searching for the answers to who am I and why am I here? You and I were designed and created by God for purpose, and we have much to do. You can listen and subscribe to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose with Brenda Devine on Anchor and all other podcast platforms. Hey, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, I just want to say thank you for joining me for this new episode of Living a Life of Purpose. I want to thank you for your time, engaging with me in this conversation that we're talking about and sharing our journeys of living a life of purpose. So the last time we were talking about servant mindset. And I know that that topic, just the word servant, throws us off because we are so inclined to think that we are in charge, we are in control. But essentially, we are just here. We are created and designed to be here to serve. But I want to segue into our topic for this episode, which is Wavering Purpose. So I want to frame this conversation to be honest with ourselves. I want you to be honest with yourself as we engage in these conversations, because I want you to think about how you feel. How are you feeling after we've had these conversations about purpose and its importance in our lives? Purpose for me was the second best day of my life because there was a connection, an automatic connection. Everything started to make sense that I was here for a reason and what I was here to do. And that feeling is wonderful. I have feelings of peace and happiness and undescribable joy, and I was grateful. But I was also afraid. There was a sense of fear and being overwhelmed and confused. And I'm certain, I am certain that you are having similar feelings and maybe others that you never really thought about or challenged because you've never had to. You've never had to. So I want you to be honest with yourself because purpose is so important. It is, for me, the most important thing that has, other than being born, other than accepting Christ as my Savior, it has been the most important thing in my life because it sets the tone and the platform for my life. So I just want to know, and I want you to think about what now. Now that you're at this point, now that you know what purpose is, now that you have begun to pull off the layers of your life, now that you've started to engage and make space for your relationship with God and relationship with yourself, and you have this better understanding of who you are, what you are, and you know that you are here for a reason. You're not a mistake. You know that you are here, that God has called you. So now we said we're going to be honest. So you already know that some form, some prompting, you've been called before we've had these conversations. You've sensed that you've been called, but maybe you put it off. Maybe you said, "Hey, I hear you, Lord, but I'm not ready. I've got so much to do." Maybe you listen to Satan and or listen to your own feelings and talk yourself out of it. Maybe you had obligations with friends and family that you put ahead of God. Maybe distracted by social media and what others are doing. Maybe you fell for that storyline that I fell for, that we have to accumulate all these things and we have to look and be a certain way to be accepted into this world. Maybe you've been so wounded and hurt and broken that you feel that you're not enough. I've been there too. I know what that feels like. Maybe you feel like you don't have the resources. Maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe you don't have the connections or the friends. Maybe you feel like what you heard the Holy Spirit tell you to do, that you just can't do it. Maybe you just want to sit back and think about it a little more. Maybe you want to run. Maybe you feel like you can hide out for a while. Maybe you think that you really, you'll figure this out a different way. That you believe in God, you love God, but it's just not the right time. Maybe you're just distracted with work, or maybe your family is telling you that, it ain't all of that. You don't have to do all of that. Maybe you think it's just enough to go to church once a week and, you've read the Bible, and you're good. Maybe you're there. And I'm going to say that I understand. I've been there. I've put off that calling. We all have heard God's call throughout our lives. But oftentimes we're either being so distracted that we don't hear it, or maybe we do hear it and we just choose not to act upon it. So you are here. You are listening to this podcast. You have listened to the conversations, and it's not by chance. It's not. It's not by chance. So when I realized that it was time, it was a situation in my life. I got pushed up against the wall, thinking that I could handle something, and I could not. And I had heard God call me many times before, but chose not to answer. But that time, it was different. It was as if this was the time. This was this was the time, Brenda. I've talked to you before, and this is the time that I need to find out what your decision is. And I felt that way because it was different than the other times that I felt God calling me. I was present. I was listening. And my back was pressed up against the wall. I was paying attention. I had no other distractions. It was just me and him. So I had to make a decision. So you have to make a decision of what you're going to do. We can talk around topics. We can talk around in circles. We can talk about only happy topics. Those topics that just make you feel good, encourage you. We can do that. But that's not going to get you where you need to be. Purpose it's not a lifestyle. It is an understanding of who you are, what you are, whose you belong to, and that there is a reason for your existence. And that reason has nothing to do with what you want, but it has everything to do what God's purpose is. And the ultimate purpose of your purpose is to share the message of salvation, the good news. So that's ultimately why we're all here. So we all have to individually make a decision of whether we're going to answer the call or whether we're going to answer God's call and live out and do what He's asked us to do. So every one of us has to answer for ourselves. You can't take mama and daddy with you. You can't take your excuses with you. You can't take any of that with you. You have to stand on your own, and you have to answer for yourself. And you have to submit your life for yourself. And you have to be committed and accountable for yourself. Doesn't mean that you don't have those days that you fall off, but there is the yes. The yes. Yes, God, I will. Yes, I will. So I want to just frame that, because as I said, we can talk about a whole lot of things, but the most important thing is whether you are going to answer that call. Are you going to answer God's calling on your life? Are you going to be active in living a life of purpose? And that decision is solely up to you. So I'm going to just leave that for you to think about, because I definitely believe in having direct conversation about what is important. And purpose is important in your life. Purpose sets the platform for your life. When you submit your life to God and you embrace your purpose, it allows you to see life totally different. My life has changed 360 degrees. I'm living more now in the last 5 to 6 years than I've ever lived in my life before, because of purpose. because I'm present, because I'm willing, because I am seeing life and enjoying life and being and working towards being that person that God has called me to be. So, purpose is oh so important, but you have to decide whether you are going to accept it or if you're just going to play with it. And I just want to also say that it's a process. Purpose is a process. Right now, I know that you may be thinking, I'm so confused. I'm overwhelmed. I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. I'm not certain I want to step out. I get it. But you don't have to have any answers. That's not your responsibility. You don't have to plan anything out. That's not your responsibility. You don't have to have an opinion. That's not your job to do. That's all for God to handle and to work out. The only thing that you have to do is to decide if you're going to answer that call. If you're going to submit your life to God, if you're going to live out your purpose. It's the only thing that you have to do. The rest of it, God will handle. He will tell you. He will guide you. He will prompt you. It is a process. It is not always apparent, but He will lead you and He will provide for what you need. And you already are enough. He didn't half create you. He gave you everything that you need. Everything that you need in order to do what He's asked you to do. So the only thing that you have to do is to make a decision of what you're going to do. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hey, and I know, again, that that's a lot. But we're at this point where we have to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to keep paddling along, or are we going to be intentional about purpose? Are we going to be intentional about our lives? Are we going to be intentional about serving God? We're at that point. So it's time to make a decision. And you don't have to have any answers. All you have to do is answer the call. This is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, on Anchor and all other major podcast platforms. To learn more about Purpose 8 Institute and our ministry of sharing the importance of purpose, please visit our website, www.purpose8institute.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even TikTok. If you would like to learn more about purpose beyond this podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, you can also purchase one of my books that are available on my website, purpose8institute.com, and also on Amazon.